Okay, Hare Krishna. I'll go to the Prabhupada. Here's the, I never got to go on the Zoom forum with Makhancora Memorial, so I'm going to add something here just for a few short minutes. Most of you don't know this, but Makhancora was coming to our programs, our Prabhupada-centered programs for the last 25 years, 5 years in Seattle, and 20 years out here on our farm in Skagit Valley, Washington. So there was a funeral oration by Hiranyakasipu upon the demise of his brother Hiranyaksha when Vishnu killed him, and the dead body of Hiranyaksha was laying on the ground, and Hiranyakasipu told all the relatives, said, "So if you think you knew this person Hiranyaksha, then go up there and say something to him, hug him, whatever, all your family relatives." He says, "No, you can't do that because you never actually saw him, you never actually knew him." So Makhancora was like this. The tributes I watched on that hour-and-a-half long Zoom presentation were very nice. They were showing how Makhancora was such a wonderful person, warm, loving, caring. Everybody loved him. So did I. Everybody knew him. But, just like Hiranyakasipu said, nobody actually knew who he was. So I got to know Makhancora very well, and he was coming to our programs because they were not like the iskcon programs, where all these bogus gurus are being worshipped. He never went to these iskcon temples, and for the last 25 years, which most of you are not aware of because most of your memories of Makhancora 30, 40 years ago. So I was with him right up to the end. We went there and did the funeral cremation service, about 8 of us, and then that was it. But even one time at one program, his wife said she was there, and Makhancora made some comment, and she was amazed, and she said, "I didn't even know this was in you." She called him Mark. She didn't even call him Makhancora. So what I'm submitting here is that, yeah, most devotees didn't know who Makhancora was. So he would not say anything against most people, but I'm not like that. And Prabhupada was not like that either. Prabhupada would speak out, as we all know, against Mayavadis, impersonalists, bogey yogis, charlatan meditators, so many things, and he warned his disciples not to follow in the footsteps of the Gaudiya Math and make all the same mistakes they did, but of course they did. So Makhancora would never go to these iskcon temples, and because he was intelligent, and this is one of the qualities I liked about him the most, was that he was one of the smartest devotees I ever knew. You didn't have to repeat things to Makhancora. He said it once and he got it, just like that. And because he read the books. So because he read the books, he was grounded in the philosophy properly. He wasn't fooled by these fools that are masquerading as spiritual masters today. And most of you probably haven't heard these quotes, but I want to read it. I just printed this thing up. Prabhupada says, this is from Bhagavatam 10:44-10, "A wise person should not enter an assembly if he knows the participants there are committing acts of impropriety, and if having entered such an assembly he fails to speak the truth, speaks falsely, or pleads ignorance, he will certainly incur sin." And the other one was Bhagavatam 10th Canto 74th chapter 40th verse, "Anyone who fails to immediately leave the place where he hears criticism of the Supreme Lord or his faithful devotee, such as Srila Prabhupada, will certainly fall down bereft of his pious credit." And the last three here, this is something I'm sure most of you have never heard. This is Bhagavatam 1:1937 purport. "Unless one is perfectly anxious to inquire about the way of perfection, there is no necessity of approaching a spiritual master. A spiritual master is not a kind of decoration for a householder. Generally, a fashionable materialist engages a so-called spiritual master without any profit. The pseudo-spiritual master flatters the so-called disciple, and therefore both the master and his ward, his disciple, go to hell, without a doubt." This was a letter to Tusta Krishna, 1972. "As for your next question, can only a few pure devotees deliver others? Anyone, if he's a pure devotee, he can deliver others. He can become spiritual master. But unless he is on that platform, he should not attempt it. Then both of them will go to hell, like blind men leading the blind." And the last one, Bhagavatam 6:7-14. "Leaders who have fallen into ignorance and who mislead people by directing them to the path of destruction, as described in the previous verse, are in effect boarding a stone boat, and so too are those who blindly follow them. A stone boat would be unable to float and would sink in the water with its passengers. Similarly, Those who mislead people go to hell, and their followers go with them. So I'm sorry to be the bad cop here. There's a good cop and a bad cop, but anyone who's seriously read Prabhupada's books has to consider these quotes. So if we go to places in propriety where sinful things are going on, and we all know what that means, or if you follow a bogus spiritual master, not only does he go to hell, but his followers go with him. These are strong words from a bona fide spiritual master. So Makhancora, he would come to our programs for the last 25 years. I enjoyed his association so much, and it was because he was a follower of the truth. He wasn't misled by so many, like so many devotees are today, who go along just to get along. He was not like that. He did not need to go to these temples. He didn't need to stay there because he could stand on his own 2 feet. So one of the qualities of a devotee is that he's independent, he's a free-thinking individual, and he makes up his own mind based on the information he sees. So Makhancora, as many of you have heard and knew him personally, he was a assiduous student of Prabhupada's books. Many times in our classes here and other places, he would play devil's advocate and challenge me on some points, which I really enjoyed because it kept me on my toes, and it showed me that this person is really a student of Prabhupada's books. So like myself, I didn't come to this movement for like prasadam. I didn't need a meal. I didn't need a place, a roof over my head. I came because of Prabhupada's books, and of course everything else was wonderful as well. So Makhancora, right out of high school, he joined the Hare Krsna movement. He didn't get a chance or bad opportunity like a lot of us to commit sinful activities for years and years before he became a devotee. So he came in a pretty pure state. So that allowed him to understand instinctively and almost immediately the truth of Prabhupada's teachings. So this is, I'm going to miss this person greatly. He was a stalwart devotee, and he regularly attended these programs. So some of you know, some of you don't know, but for the last 25 years, both in Seattle and here in Skagit Valley, we've been doing these Prabhupada-centered programs, worshiping Krishna. So when we had programs, I would usually do the artik, and Makhancora would lead the kirtan. Then we have class, and him and I would play together. I'd play harmonium, he'd play the mridanga, and it was just like this rapport between him and I that was there instinctively. So because, then the reason I liked him, as I said, was because he was such an intelligent devotee. He could understand truth from illusion, and he didn't speak out against it as much as I do. And that's probably why he was so well liked. But if people wanted to know the truth, then he would tell them. So this is the 5 minutes that I didn't get to speak on part this Zoom forum, and I'll be sending this video through YouTube to some of you. So this is the Makhancora that most of you did not know in the last 25 years because he was in this area, not in Canada and other places. And once the temples broke down, all the Prabhupada disciples left. We all got scattered to the wind like seed. But he would gravitate towards our programs, and our program was the only program that he would go to. It was a regular program, weekly in Seattle, and we would go on Harinam every Saturday. And then the next day we'd have a Sunday Feast program, and he would be there for all of it. So this is the character of such a great soul as Makhancora, and I just wanted to say a few things about him. Hare Krishna. All glories to Prabhupada.